Welcome to this Election Forum special edition of John Redmann, Power of Attorney, with today's election focus on the pending judicial elections set for November 3rd, 2020, to elect a judge for Orleans Parish Civil District Court in Division E, and another race to elect a judge in Jefferson Parish 24th Judicial District Court, Division H. These election forums are part of a series that you can access along with other past episodes of this show via the show's website, anytime or by searching for it on Google or YouTube. We also want to remind everyone to be safe when they go out to vote and be mindful and courteous of our current COVID guidelines. Always check your local news and trusted sources for updates on what's happening with mail-in voting and for in-person voting. For today's show, in Part 1, we will be interviewing candidates for the Orleans Civil District Court Division E race first, and then in Part 2, we will interview the candidates for the Jefferson Parish Judicial Court race. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now we are ready to introduce you to the candidates for Judge of Civil District Court Division E. By coin toss, we previously determined the order of our guests. Our first candidate for this segment is Ms. Diane Alexander. Ms. Alexander is a native New Orleanian and earned her Juris Doctorate degree from Loyola University College of Law in 1999. She has served as the attorney for Character and Fitness for the Louisiana Supreme Court Committee on Bar Admissions and has served as Clerk of Court for Orleans Parish Juvenile Court and was also a staff attorney for the Louisiana Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal. Ms. Alexander, thank you for being here today, joining us for this important election show. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready, and thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we're delighted to host you for this. So let's get right to it, shall we? First question, tell us a little bit more about your background and experience that you believe sets you apart from your opponent as the better person to serve as judge. And what about your past experience suggests you will serve this community well in the future in the role of judge?
Well, John, again, I just want to say thank you for having me here. And as you've already said, I am a native New Orleanian. I was born here in the city of New Orleans, and I have deep roots in the Treme area. Both my parents were born and raised in the Treme area of the city. I attended St. Mary's Academy for high school, and I attended Southern University at New Orleans for undergraduate. As you mentioned, I went to Loyola University College of Law, where I received my JD in 1999. My experience is that I believe that will be beneficial to me having this seat. I know that you mentioned that I served as the Clerk of Court for Orleans Parish Juvenile Court, and I've served as General Counsel for Louisiana State Board of Embalmers and Funeral Directors, and as the attorney for Character and Fitness, and as a staff attorney at the Fourth Circuit. All of those experiences together, my 20 years of diverse legal experience, I believe, gives me knowledge in various areas of law, such as civil litigation, family law, as well as being able to write legal opinions. And I believe that all of that experience and knowledge will allow me to serve as a judge for the citizens of New Orleans with dignity and respect, but it gives me a knowledge base that will allow me to take the bench, hit the ground running, and to render decisions in an effective and efficient manner the first time around.
Okay, next question. What do you think is the most important role a Civil District Court judge plays in our community? And how do you believe you are best qualified to fulfill that role?
I believe a Civil District Court judge plays an important role in ensuring that all litigants who come before the court are treated fairly, with dignity and respect. And they ensure that everyone who is seeking a remedy for their situation in the court gets the day in court that they deserve. So I believe that, as I said before, my experience will allow me to serve as a judge that will be able to give the litigants who come before me the efficient and effective decisions that they need the first time around.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help in our legal system? And if not, what do you believe can be done or should be done to provide wider and better access to our citizens?
I believe that access is pretty adequate, but I also believe that access can be increased if, say, for example, I know that in the past years, the Civil District Court instituted a help desk for pro se litigants who have come to the court. Well, I was believing and thinking that maybe that same idea could then be incorporated into a virtual help desk, and so that any citizen and any particularly pro se litigant who was looking to access the court could go to the court's website, and they would be able to find, say, frequently asked questions, get information, get forms, and possibly find the forms and filings that they would need, so that that would ensure that anyone needing to access the court, particularly in this time of COVID, would have access to the system on a consistent and equal basis.
And just to be sure that everybody is keeping up with what you said, sometimes lawyers, we use fancy lawyer words. A pro se litigant, how would you define that for our viewers?
Simply put, a pro se litigant is someone who's representing themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Can you point to a moment in your career when you were forced to make a decision that maybe was not very popular, maybe politically unpopular, but you felt like you had to make a tough call, a tough decision because of whatever the situation was, that you believe you can tell us about that helps people, that would help our viewers understand a little more about you and kind of what your makeup is, what you're about. If you could think of one to help us understand more about you and how you handle situations like that.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, honestly, and it's the most recent tough decision I had to make, and it was the decision to run for this office, quite honestly. It was a tough decision for me because I know the incumbent. He is a law school classmate of mine, and I know him and I respect him personally. However, but I also know that there have been some issues, and that the incumbent has taken at least 8 months to render a decision in a child support matter, and that 8 months could have meant the difference between a parent being able to feed their child or possibly getting on public assistance. I also know that there's at least one litigant who has waited for more than a year to have a court date in the incumbent's division, and that I know that 90% of the incumbent's decisions that have been appealed have been reversed by the Fourth Circuit. And so in having that knowledge, in knowing the incumbent personally, I had to make the decision, do I run against someone that I know and respect personally, or do I offer myself up for service to the citizens of the city of New Orleans who deserve a judge who's going to serve them with dignity and respect, and who's going to give them justice in a timely and efficient manner the first time around?
Thank you for sharing that insight. I have another question. What is your vision for the future of this court, if you're given the privilege of sitting as a judge in that court, and how would you plan on making an impact while maintaining high standards in that court if elected?
If elected, as I've already said, John, I intend to serve with dignity and respect, and ensure that the docket and the cases that come before me are moved in an efficient manner, in a timely manner, that I administer and render decisions that are actually proficient and efficient, that I balance the need for being careful and paying attention to detail, along with making sure that cases don't languish and fall by the wayside, with, again, ensuring that the decisions that are rendered correctly and timely the first time around without the need for an appeal or writ to get the correct result.
Okay. We have time for one or two more. Is there anything you would like to share with our viewers that I have not asked you about yet in this interview?
Sure. I'd like to share with your viewers that I'm also a mom, that I'm a mom of two teenage sons. He is a freshman at Ben Franklin High School, and that I live in the New Orleans East community, and that I've served my community for many years by volunteering with an organization that's called the Honor Foundation. And what the Honor Foundation does is they pick various areas in the New Orleans East area to actually pick up trash and clean up and beautify the neighborhood of the various neighborhoods of New Orleans East.
Okay. Looks like we have a little bit more time. Here's a question. I think it's important. Why don't you tell the viewers your ballot number and your website information so they'll have a way to find out more about you.
Sure. I am number 72 on the ballot, and my website is dianeforjudge.com, www.dianeforjudge.com.
Okay. And I assume at that website they can learn more about your platform, your history, more about some of the agenda items you've described today, right?
Correct. They most certainly can. They can get all of that information on the website.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. And Attorney Diane Alexander, thank you for being here, telling us more about you and what you hope to achieve if given the privilege of serving as judge. I'm afraid we're now out of time for this segment, but I'm grateful to you for what you've been able to share today. So at this time, we're going to have to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have our next guest, Judge Omar Mason. Please stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Our next guest is Judge Omar Mason. Judge Mason is judge of the Orleans Parish Civil District Court Division E. He is currently assigned to Domestic Relations Section 1 of the Civil District Court, where he presides over family court matters, ranging from divorce and custody to child support and community property partition. Judge Mason earned his Juris Doctor degree from Loyola University School of Law in New Orleans in 1999. Prior to assuming the bench in January 2019, Judge Mason enjoyed a 19-year career as an attorney practicing law in a wide variety of areas, including but not limited to plaintiff personal injury, class actions, complex litigation, and business litigation in Louisiana and Texas. Judge Mason, thank you for being on the show. Thanks for being here today, and welcome back. Well, you actually did another show with me.
I did, yes.
Not too long ago, a couple of years back.
A few years ago, yes.
Okay.
Thank you for having me, John. I appreciate the opportunity to share with the folks.
Well, you're the sitting judge.
Yes.
You have an opponent. She's on the same show with us. People on this same show describing her story. But now it's time for you to tell your story.
Sure.
And let's get right to those questions, shall we?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. So first question, please tell us a little more about your background and experience that you believe sets you apart from your opponent as the better qualified person to serve as judge. And what about your past suggests you will serve this community well in the future in the role as judge?
Yes, and thank you very much again for the opportunity, John, to be here. And I thank you for allowing me to share my experience with the folks of New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans, born and raised, matriculated through the public school system. And one thing that I pride myself on is the fact that I care a lot for the folks, the people of the city of New Orleans. I care a lot for New Orleans. 2 years ago, when I decided to run for this position, I knew that New Orleans deserved a judge who would not just sit on a bench, but would stand up to ensure that justice for all is a reality for all. And I take that very seriously as far as my background is concerned. I felt that it was a need. I felt that it was something that I had the skill set and the background and the experience to be of service to the citizens of New Orleans. So that's why I decided to run for this seat less than 2 years ago. I had, as you mentioned in the intro, I have over 19 years of civil litigation experience, ranging from plaintiff's personal injury cases. I was involved, you may think I was a baby at the time, but I was actually involved on the plaintiff's trial team for the Louisiana tobacco class action litigation with some pretty stellar lawyers to see in action and to be side by side with in action. So I've done that, and I've done a number of years in the business litigation arena, commercial litigation representing businesses large and small. I've done everything from successions work to real estate closings for different entities and different individuals. I've kind of covered the gamut in the civil arena.
And I'm sorry for interrupting.
No problem.
And as it turns out, these are all cases that, many of them end up, they can be litigated in Orleans Parish civil
Absolutely.
courts as well.
Yes.
Correct. Maybe not in the domestic or the family court.
Yes.
But it's something that you had experience in civil district court handling those types of cases.
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Okay.
and also the domestic. Of course, I've been handling the domestic docket since I was elected in 2018, and I've done exclusively the domestic docket. However, the seat that I hold is not a permanent domestic seat. I will be transitioning over into the general civil docket, handling more of the matters that I've handled during my 19-year career in the litigation arena.
So it's important your experience in areas that are not domestic. Is that what you're
Yes.
suggesting? Okay, thank you
Yes.
for explaining that.
And it's been helpful. My experience in evidence and procedure, those have been invaluable to my time on the domestic docket, because those are things that are across the gamut, across the board. And I find myself very, even though I did very little domestic, if at all, in my practice, for the last year and a half, I've been doing exclusively domestic, and I would not be able to do what I do currently had it not been for my experience in the general civil litigation arena, knowing evidence, knowing procedure, and things of that nature. Those are very important tools to have as a sitting judge. And so I found those very, very beneficial in helping me make the transition very smoothly into the domestic docket.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. Next question. What do you think is the most important role that a civil district court judge plays in our community? And how do you believe you are qualified or best qualified to fulfill that role?
Yes, well, and that's a great question. As you can see in what's going on in the world today, and in this country in particular, there's an apparent erosion of faith and confidence in government. And of course, the judicial branch is a very important factor in government, the third branch of government, the judicial branch. And I think that folks in the Orleans Parish in particular need that reassurance that the government is going to be there for them, not to just rely solely on the government, but understand that the government is not going to be bought and sold. Folks who are elected to positions such as judge, especially, it's a position of honor and dignity and respect, and it's something that I carry with me very seriously my years of my entire life. I've developed my character and my temperament and my integrity. And folks who come before you have serious matters of high consequence that I take very seriously. And folks want a judge who is going to be there when there's time for them to be heard in court, to have that judicial temperament, to give them the opportunity to be heard. And one thing I can assure you in my year and a half on the bench is that everyone who's appeared before me has been afforded more than a fair opportunity to be heard, whether they win, lose, or draw when it's all said and done. And I think that folks have a respect for that in the community. And that's what needs to be emphasized. That's what needs to be restored. I think public education is a huge thing for me, so that there won't be so much apathy towards the whole process of government, and particularly electing individuals to serve in elected positions, especially in the judicial branch. And you'll see in history, low turnout elections, or if they go down ballot, it tapers off when you come to the judicial elections. And I try to rebut that as much as possible when I go out in public. The best opportunity to have to speak to the public, of course, because of my docket and everything else that's going on, is during this process, the campaign process, and getting out and getting into forums, getting into forums such as this, to be able to educate the public about that, so that folks can know what's going on in the courts, and have a better understanding, so they can have a better appreciation for it.
Right. Well, we certainly do appreciate how important it is that people participate in the process. They don't lose faith and they vote. Let's get to the next question. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help in our legal system? If not, what do you think could be done, or what should be done in order to provide them wider and better access?
Yes, and we have a good system set up in Orleans Parish, particularly when it comes to the domestic docket. I would say there's a self-help desk that's manned by volunteer attorneys to help individuals who come in with domestic violence issues, for instance, protective orders. We handle a great deal of protective orders, from domestic abuse protective orders to stalking protective orders. And in the domestic abuse context, there are legal services basically to help them fill out a form, the Louisiana Protective Order Registry form, so that they can navigate that system. Another benefit is that the costs associated with filing protective orders are deferred. So there's no upfront costs. That's to avoid having folks feel uncomfortable filing protective orders because they don't have the financial resources to file them. But as far as access to justice and legal representation, that's an ongoing problem, of course, as I'm sure you're very familiar with. I preside over numerous cases involving pro se litigants, individuals representing themselves. And one thing that I try to do is whether the other side, one side is represented by counsel and the other side isn't, I'll always make it a point to explain what the process is, explain how we're going to proceed that day, and so that even the folks without legal representation understand. And I think judges can play a key role in that, in making sure that the playing field is leveled, so to speak, with or without representation, so that the litigants can be comfortable when they come to court, in knowing that their rights are going to be protected.
Okay, thank you for explaining that answer. Next question, and we're starting to run short on time here, but maybe you could answer this question fairly briefly. Is there anything that you would like to share or let our viewers know that I haven't already touched on in the first couple of questions?
Yes, the civil law docket, which is what I'll be transitioning to, is going to be something that's even more aligned with what I've done in the past, and that's what I'll be transitioning, because we have a seat that's open in the Civil District Court. That's going to be the newest judge is going to be elected. For those who don't understand the process, there's three divisions that handle the 3 domestic dockets currently. 2 of those positions are designated domestic divisions. Any person who runs for those seats are going to be on the domestic docket.
And that's not one that you're on.
That's not the one that I'm on. I'm on the third docket, which is the new, because I'm the newest judge in Civil District Court. So we have another seat that's in Division I, which will have an election November 3rd as well, that will be filled by that. And so I'll be transitioning to the general civil law docket. However, and that's where I have most of my background and experience. But like I said, the last year and a half that I've been on the domestic docket has been very rewarding. I think it's even though you may say it's like a hazing tactic maybe for the newest judges, but I've withstood that. And one thing that I pride myself on again is knowing the law, being qualified. I'm very well qualified in knowing the law. I find myself in a position every time I turn around where I just, no matter how much preparation I do, I have to make judgment calls on the spot, and I'm prepared to do that and continue to do that to serve the people of New Orleans as I promised to do.
All right, we're just about out of time, but why don't we take the last 30 seconds and why don't you let our viewers know what your ballot number is and your website address?
Yes, thank you. My ballot number is number 73. So going down the ballot, and my website is www.okmasonforjudge.com. That's www.okmasonforjudge.com.
All right, very good. Well, thank you again, Judge Mason, for being on the show and letting us know more about you and your experience and your hopes and plans for the future. If the viewers decide to hire you back again for another term on the bench, after this short break, we will return to the candidates for the next segment for the candidates for 24th Judicial District Court, Division H, Donald Chick Foray and Jerry Smith. Our first guest will be Mr. Foray. We will be right back. We are back. We will be interviewing now the two candidates running for judge for the 24th Judicial District Court, Division H in Jefferson Parish. The 24th Judicial District Court has original jurisdiction of all civil and criminal matters in Jefferson Parish, with the exception of certain juvenile matters. The 24th Judicial District Court has appellate jurisdiction of appeals from all city courts in Jefferson Parish as well. Our first guest for this segment is Mr. Donald Chick Foray. Mr. Foray is a New Orleans native and is an attorney who was born and raised in New Orleans. A graduate of Jesuit High School, LSU, and Tulane Law School, Mr. Foray started practicing law in 1977, shortly after graduating from law school. Mr. Foray worked as an assistant district attorney in New Orleans, and soon after that he was promoted to prosecute in the Career Criminal Bureau. Mr. Foray then joined the Department of Justice in 1982 as an assistant U.S. attorney. Mr. Foray, welcome to the show.
Good morning, John. How are you?
Fantastic.
And actually, just one correction. I grew up in Jefferson Parish. I was born in Jefferson Parish and grew up in Jefferson Parish. And this is a district that includes the East Bank of Jefferson. Even though the 24th JDC, you hear cases throughout Jefferson Parish, it is a district court and a district election where the people of East Jefferson will be voting. And I've lived in East Jefferson all of my life.
My apologies, and thank you for pointing that out. We need to check our facts a little bit better before we invite you on the show next time, and for all the other guests coming on the show. So with the limited time we have, I want to get to our questions. So the first question for our viewers, who hopefully we're going to get them as many as possible to the voting booths or mail-in votes, I'd like you to tell us a little bit more about your background and experience that you believe sets you apart from your opponent as the better person to serve as judge, and what about your past suggests you will serve this community well in the future in the role of a judge?
And I would start with a one-word answer: experience. There was a great quote that I read recently which said, when you're young, you learn. When you're older, you understand. I understand, having practiced law for 43 years, what makes a good judge. I've seen good judges and I've seen bad judges. I not only have the legal experience of practicing law for 43 years, I also have real life experiences. I can only run one time because of the law. I'm 67 years old. Therefore, I am term limited out by age. So I'm not going to be making decisions as a judge on how I can get reelected, what is most politically correct. My decisions are going to be made on what's fair and just. I'm going to base my decisions on honesty and integrity. And every day when I go to work, it's going to be based upon what is right under the law and the evidence.
Very good. Next question. What do you think is the most important role that 24th JDC judges play in our community. How are you best qualified to fulfill that role?
As you talked about, the jurisdictional amount and limits of the Jefferson Parish Court is these are the most serious cases in Jefferson Parish. Let's look at the criminal cases. You're talking about rapes, robberies, armed robberies, murders. Every serious criminal case comes through that court. Every serious civil case goes through that court. Child custody, automobile accidents, successions, property disputes. I tell everyone on the campaign trail, the most serious cases and the most serious issues in Jefferson Parish are decided by the judgeship that I'm running for, the 24th JDC.
Very good. So, do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help in our system? And if not, what do you believe can be done to improve wider and better access to all our citizens in this community?
I don't think anybody would say that everybody has equal access to the courts. And the courts are unfamiliar territory to most folks. You and I have been in the system for a long time. I've been doing this for 43 years. I feel so comfortable in a courtroom. You know, there's some folks, as we look at the Superdome here through the window, they feel that's their happy place when they sit in the Superdome.
Sure.
Whether it be a duck blind or Disney World or a fishing boat, when I'm in the courtroom, that's my happy place. That's where I feel most comfortable. I think it's incumbent upon the judges, and if and when I get elected, to make the litigants feel at home, make them feel comfortable, because they're going into a territory that they are unfamiliar with and most of them are scared of, and they need to know that they're going to be treated with respect and that the judge is going to operate fairly with honesty and integrity. And it doesn't matter who's on what side. There's no politics that are going to take place. Whoever has access to that courtroom will be treated fairly and they will get a just result. It is a search for the truth, and you have to have someone who has experience, knowledge of the law, and integrity to make those difficult decisions for the most serious cases.
Great. Well, why don't you, let's take a moment here to tell our viewers your ballot number and where they can find out more information about you and your platform.
Yeah. Chick 4A, and it's Donald Chick 4A, and it's Division H, 24th JDC, and my ballot number is 76, and our website is 4aforjudge.com. It's easy to find. You can Google Chick 4A and it'll come up, and there's a way for yard signs and all the information that you need. But it's number 76 on the ballot, November 3rd. There are 2 candidates in our race. Now remember, there are 2 different 24th JDC judgeships on that day. And some folks are getting confused as to who's running against who. In B, which has nothing to do with our election, is Pat Rooney and Chris Cox. In our election is Jerry Smith and Chick 4A for Division H. So there are only 2 candidates in my race, Chick 4A and Jerry Smith.
Okay, and that's good. It's always helpful to be to remind our viewers, remind everybody, there's a lot on the docket, and the more that they are able to distinguish, number one, both candidates for your race will be on this show, and on another show we'll have the candidates for the other 24th Judicial District Court judge race. But going to the websites, informing yourselves, empowering yourselves, you'll be ready to vote. Now, we do have a little bit more time, and I'd like to ask you if there's anything else in particular you'd like to talk about or discuss, something I didn't specifically ask you about. I wish we had an hour to talk, but in the limited time that this show allows, is there anything specifically you would like to tell the voters about yourself, about your platform, that you think would be helpful to them to make a decision on which candidate to vote for in your race?
John, this is a critically important election, not only locally for the 24th Judicial District Court, which includes the East Bank of Jefferson Parish, but nationally. I am so proud that I am the endorsed Republican candidate. I am the endorsed Republican candidate. My opponent and I both fought hard for that endorsement, and I got that endorsement. I am also proud that I've been endorsed by over 500 practicing lawyers. That includes plaintiff lawyers, insurance lawyers, business lawyers, family lawyers. I have gotten tremendous support from the legal community. Why is that important? Because those are the people who go into the courtroom that we talk about. They're representing the litigants in that courtroom. They are the mouthpiece for that. They have confidence in me. 525 lawyers. I've been endorsed by the district attorney of Jefferson Parish, Paul Connick. I never worked for Paul Connick, but yet he has endorsed me. I've been endorsed by the parish president, Cynthia Lee Shang, Councilman Scott Walker, Councilman Dino Bonato, Councilman Dominic Impostata, Councilwoman Jennifer Van Rankin, the Harahan mayor, the Harahan chief of police, the Kenner mayor, the Kenner chief of police, most of the Kenner council, the Harahan council, Big John Ilg, state representative, Debbie Villio, state representative. All of these people know my background, that I've been practicing law for 43 years. I started working when I was 13 years old. Not only do I bring legal experience, I bring real life experience. I have 3 children, I have 4 grandchildren. I will make Jefferson Parish a safe place for my children, for my grandchildren, and for all the citizens of Jefferson Parish. I look forward to serving for 6 years. I can only serve 6 years. I want to work as hard as I can and give the people of Jefferson Parish the best 6 years of my life.
Looks like we got an extra minute or two to talk. So we got a bonus round question here. Can you point to a moment in your professional career, or it may be something in your personal life, where you had to make a tough decision, maybe a politically unpopular or an unpopular business-wise decision, that you think helps demonstrate the who you are and why you can make tough decisions as a judge?
In 2009, there was an open seat in the 24th Judicial District Court Division A. I had t-shirts printed, I had sweatshirts. 11 years ago, I was going to run. I had a meeting with my family, and I brought my 2 daughters in, and I said, girls, we got to cut back. Dad's taking a serious pay cut. And that's one thing I think people need to understand is that when you get to be my age, you're taking a serious pay cut to run for judge. I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me, but I almost ran for judge in 2009. And my daughters said to me, Dad, we love you, we want you to be happy, but we need a big wedding. We need $100,000 for our wedding. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You don't even have boyfriends. I made a decision in 2009 that I was not going to run for judge, that it was more important for me to provide for my family, to give my daughters what they were entitled to work hard. It's now 11 years later. I've worked hard to be in a position where I can afford to run. I'm funding this campaign right now with my own money. Certainly we're going to try to raise money at some point. But I feel like the decision I made in 2009 was best for my family. Now I'm asking the voters of Jefferson Parish, allow me to please serve you and end my career on a high note. And I will work day and night to make sure that the people of Jefferson Parish are treated with respect and fairly, with honesty and integrity.
Well, Mr. Foray, looks like we've just about run out of time. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It's been great hearing your perspective and learning more about you. Please, everyone, stay tuned for our next candidate, Jerry Smith. We will be right back after this short break. Welcome back. I have here with me Mr. Jerry Smith, who is also running for District Judge of the 24th Judicial District Court Division H. Jerry received his Juris Doctor from LSU Law School in 2000. As owner of a private practice, Mr. Smith has represented both plaintiffs and defendants in civil suits and clients in family law matters. Jerry has been an assistant district attorney for 13 years as well. He was the Jefferson Parish felony prosecutor from 2008 to 2015 and the St. Tammany Parish career criminal and felony prosecutor from 2015 to 2019. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Jerry Smith. We are glad to have this opportunity to learn more about you and your platform, your qualifications for this judicial race.
Sure. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So let's get right to it. We've got some questions for you. Let's start with the first one, which is, we'd like you to tell us a little bit more about you, your background and experience that you believe sets you apart from your opponent as the better person to serve as judge, and what about your past suggests you will serve this community well in the future in the role of judge.
All right, an easy one. No, I think to go back to 1995, I was finishing up college and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I ended up being a witness on a criminal case in Orleans Parish. I, along with my friends, we caught somebody breaking into my friend's house while she was inside, and after that we had to go testify in court, and it was just such a fascinating experience, and I was watching what the prosecutors were doing. And at that point I said, I really want to do that. So I went to law school and got my law degree and went directly to work for the Orleans Parish DA's office. Over the next 20 years, or just about 20 years, I have worked in criminal prosecution. I've even handled some defense cases. I've worked in civil on both sides, and I've worked in family law. So I have a wide variety of experience that I think is important to have the perspective of every type of case that comes into the courtroom to kind of understand where those people are coming from. So I think that experience, I think my 13 years serving as a prosecutor, which is public service, I want to continue that public service. And I think the position of judge is very important, and it's very important to have people who are there for the right reasons. And I believe that my history of public service should show that that's my main motivation for wanting to seek this judgeship.
Okay. Question. What do you think is the most important role for a judge in this community, and how do you believe that you are qualified to fulfill such a role?
Well, there are rules for judges, and they're called the Code of Judicial Conduct. And canon number one, rule number one, is that an honorable and independent judiciary is indispensable to justice in our society. And independence, and what does that mean to be an independent judiciary? And it means to hear the cases that come before you and decide them on the facts that you hear and the law, with no regard of who it is who's walking into your courtroom. Everybody who walks in should be treated the same, whether they hire a particular attorney or whether they have some sort of connection to some politician. Independence is very important, and I don't have a political machine pushing me, and I believe that I am a lot more independent than my opponent, and I believe that's very important. And I think the ability of a judge to have judicial temperament, and that is to remove your own emotion from it, and just decide the case based on what's presented in court. And I know I have the ability to do that, and so that's another reason why I believe I'm the most qualified candidate.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Next question. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help in our legal system? And if not, what do you believe can or should be done to provide wider and better access to such justice?
Well, that question, it's an easy one for me to answer because in the 13 years that I served in various district attorneys' offices, they all have some sort of system for having a duty assistant DA. And that is the assistant DA who takes calls that come in or people who walk in off the street who have a problem. And 9 times out of 10, those are not the types of issues that the assistant district attorney can help them with. So part of what you do is you try to steer them to the person who can help them. And so we've done, you end up talking a lot with the LSBA referral line, some of the pro bono outfits.
So let's start to interrupt you. LSBA is Louisiana State Bar Association.
I'm sorry, yes.
And that's an organization set up within I guess the Bar Association is an outfit that polices attorneys, and it is there to try and support what the attorneys do to reach out to the community. And you said other pro bono.
There are other pro bono efforts that that somebody's problem may fall into if they don't have the money to get access. I do believe that there are a lot of things that could demystify what goes on in a courthouse and be provided in a way that the ordinary citizen can understand it and take action on it without crossing the line of the court giving legal advice, which is something that we can't do.
Okay. Next question. You mentioned a story about what sort of brought you to an interest in going to law school and being interested in being a prosecutor. What about the position of being a judge interested you and made you decide to go from taking a side as a prosecutor and a district attorney to being a judge, so sort of a referee, somebody who decides cases, and obviously in Jefferson Parish, criminal or civil cases?
Well, part of that goes back to my work at the Jefferson Parish District Attorney's Office. I will say that the greatest thing I learned in that office was a very high level of ethics. And I believe that office promotes that and teaches that to all the assistants there. And when I say that, what I mean is when we had a case, if the defense attorney wasn't doing a full job, or you knew that there was something they were missing that they weren't taking advantage of for their client, we found it was our obligation to present that to them and kind of act as the gatekeeper, the goaltender, so that somebody doesn't get taken advantage of because perhaps their attorney didn't know about a certain law or didn't know about a certain circumstance. So I feel like in the years that I was there, I was already performing that role of both sides. Although I was a zealous advocate for the state and trying to protect the public from dangerous criminals, you also have to protect the defendants from the system itself. And that practice over many years doing that, I think is going to be a big asset in the judgeship.
Okay. Next question. What is your vision for the future of the court? If you are privileged to serve as a judge by being elected, how do you plan on making an impact while maintaining the high standard that we hold for our courts?
Absolutely, great question. So as we remember, looking back in history, when these natural disasters happen, they often change the way we operate, change the way we do things. Up until Hurricane Katrina, nobody texted. And then once Hurricane Katrina came along, everybody had to rely on text messages to communicate. We've seen that with the COVID-19 crisis, that you have had a lot more of Zoom or other video technology to use to have meetings virtually. And when I started thinking about that as it pertains to courts, what I remember is on days when I would be in court and it was a civil day, which would mean that the court was typically handling civil cases as opposed to criminal, you would walk in and see 40 attorneys in there. And you know that each one of those attorneys is billing a few $100s an hour, so I'm looking at the room, looking at how much money is really lost to waste. And there's so many things that have agreed, the parties agreed what's going to happen, and even though they know what's going to happen, they go and they wait for an hour so that they can all stand up and say what they already knew was going to happen. So I want to integrate video conferencing more with the courtroom and with consent of the parties, so that both sides, if they agree, that they know what's going to happen, then there's no need for everybody to come physically down there and do it, unless there's live testimony being taken or something like that.
And I'm glad to hear you say that. And we've heard one or two other candidates or more already bring that up. That I hope one of the good things that may come out of this pandemic, which is wreaking havoc on people's lives and even worse with some families, is some technological advances. So I'm glad to hear that that is something that interests you too, because long before the pandemic, it just seemed like such an inefficient way to run courtrooms where you had a room full of lawyers. Now, some lawyers, they're not making money. You know, I'm a personal injury lawyer, and I don't make money unless I'm successful at the end of the case for my client. And if I'm there 5 minutes or if I'm there 4 hours, I'm not paid an extra nickel. It's whether or not I'm successful at that hearing and ultimately successful in the case.
Sure.
But I think even judges staggering the hearing. Don't tell everybody to get there at 9 o'clock. Have some get there at 9, have some get there at 9:30, some get there at 10, 10:30, 11. If you know everybody's going to be there till lunchtime, why make everybody get there at 9? But the Zoom meetings, I love it, and I hope that if you're successful, that's something you'll be able to implement for at least some kind of hearings. But we still have some time, so next question. And we have time for maybe one or two more. Can you point to a moment in your career where maybe you had to make a difficult choice? Maybe something that was politically unpopular, where you had to make a tough decision that maybe was going to offend or upset somebody or a group, but you still had to make that decision that you can talk about today. Can you give us an example, maybe in the next minute, because we are starting to run short?
That happens all the time. When you're in that position and you have to, like I said, that the judiciary has to be independent, but decisions of the prosecutors also have to be made without fear of public outcry or passion for a particular cause. And so we often did have issues like that would come up. I prosecuted some very politically connected people. I prosecuted some big people in the financial community, and it wasn't popular to a lot of people. And it really didn't affect my decisions at all, because it's not important who somebody is. It's important what they did and what the appropriate punishment is. So yes, and without giving too much detail
Sure.
on a particular case, yes, it came up rather often.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. Now we have time for one more question, and it's an important one because for those viewers out there who would like to find out more about you and your platform, how about you tell us your campaign, your ballot number, and your website address for your campaign?
Sure. My ballot number is 77, and my Facebook page is Jerry Smith for Judge, and my website is www.jerrysmithforjudge.com.
Great. I'm very grateful to you. You were able to join us here today for this filming. Thank you for answering all these questions and helping us understand a little more about you and your goals and aspirations should you be given the privilege of serving as judge. Unfortunately, however, we are out of time, and I can't ask any more questions. Thank all of you for joining us for this show, this segment. We really hope you felt like you got to know your candidates better and on a more personal level. Remember to keep updated through your local news and online resources as to the current COVID guidelines for voting at your designated ballot station and mail-in voting practices. Stay safe and get out there to vote on November the 3rd. That's all the time we have today. You can view this show and previous shows at johnredmannpoa.com. Be on the lookout for more special election episodes of John Redmann, Power of Attorney. There are many other local races happening on November 3rd. You can visit govotela.org. You can also visit johnredmannpoa.com to view this show and previous shows. My name is John Redmann, and I look forward to seeing you next time.